it for yourself. You heard it. It's crazy what's going on at the moment. But this week, being a Monday today, we know that on the 25th of January, the DA is going to do what he did a couple of years ago, marching to Lutuli House. That did not go down well for the DA. And of course, we remember when they also marched to Kosato House. And that did not end quite well for the DA. Now, I don't know, but the opposition has been fragmented in how they want to deal with energy matters. And of course, they tried to unite against the Pala issue, which seems to have taken a bit of a should I say, the Pala issue has been swept under the carpet because now you have the energy crisis that is now steering the debate away from Pala. So I don't know if the opposition is going to have the same amount of energy in working together in dealing with this issue, Eskom, as much as they did when they had vested interest in Pala. Welcome to the Free Ride Podcast. Free Riders, welcome to it, man. Thank you so much for joining me right here on the Free Ride Podcast. And of course, this one is the unfiltered truths. And of course, I haven't been doing the unfiltered truths for about a few weeks now, but I'm back at it, man. I hope you guys have had a very interesting year because so much has happened in the last week or two. Of course, we've come into this year with a lot of baggage from last year. Not only just last year, but for years. You may also add in the so-called 9 wasted years, the Ramaphosa years. And this is where we are at the moment. Why am I talking about? I'm talking about the challenges and the problems that we are facing as a country when it comes to the issues of power, electricity. So, Remigai at the moment. All right, so let's go a step back. So, what's happening at the moment is that we have been fed lies and lies upon lies upon lies for the last 10, 15, almost 20 years. Okay? What am I talking about? First of all, we have been told that the issues around electricity supply, the issues of power generation, the issue of Eskom would be resolved 10 years ago. We have been told that this issue was going to be resolved. The issues of Eskom were going to be fixed. There were announcements that have been made in the past. And of course, today as we sit here, and as of yesterday, there was another announcement that was made by Eskom. Eskom says to us that we must expect that for the next 2 years, there is going to be permanent load shedding. Load shedding for the next 2 years. And this is between stages 2 and stage 3, load shedding for the next 2 years. All right. And of course, as South Africans, we are up in arms about it. I personally have suffered. You have suffered. Businesses have struggled. We are going through a very difficult time. Job losses are on the rise. Companies are closing down. Businesses cannot sustain themselves with regards to keeping their lights on and servicing their customers. Businesses are losing hundreds of thousands, especially small businesses. Large-scale businesses are losing millions because of load shedding. All right, so here's what we're going to do on the show. Firstly, we must brace ourselves for the most difficult 2 years, all right? The most difficult 2 years is going to come starting now. As of yesterday, Eskom has announced that we've got 2 years of load shedding. So let's brace ourselves. So 2023, that's going to be difficult. And we've seen also NERSA allowing for Eskom to give us an increase. There's going to be another increase next year, right? So It's going to be a tough one for us as consumers, as residents of this country, as citizens of this country. And so brace ourselves for the most difficult 2 years. So here's what I also want to look at. All right, so I want us to start off this show by looking at, firstly, how some of the businesses are struggling. And I'm talking about businesses on the ground, small businesses that you can even overlook, informal businesses, medium-sized businesses, and big-scale businesses. So let's take a look at this. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the job losses or companies that have closed down that Sowetan has published in a newspaper. Let's do that. Boom.
Business are suffering because of load shedding.
Eh? Ah, load. Buang jan bu. King pot ngage, king pot ngage ha. Buang jan bu. King pot ngage, king pot.
All right, so Sowetan newspaper is telling us that there's been a couple of businesses that have been affected, and they've published this about 2 weeks ago. One of them is Soweto Creamers, Royal Piles, Putuma, Funeral, and there's a whole long list that you can see right here that I'm going to publish that you can have a look at. I'm sure you know a couple of businesses that have also just been hit hard by Eskom. If you're a small-time entrepreneur, you are going to face the most difficult time. Bomme ba ba rekisang kaolo, ba ba paisang dijo. I mean, it's going to be the most difficult thing because the cost of making food now is becoming more and more expensive. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. I want us to go back and look at the promises that were made. Let's start with Jacob Zuma when he was the president of the country, and then we go and hear what the former deputy president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, whose responsibility was to oversee partly the works of what government is doing, and in particular, what Eskom is doing. So he's made a couple of announcements too. So let's take a look at those.
My government ended load shedding until I left office at the start of 2018. This load shedding was stopped for 3 years in the time of professionals such as Mr. Brian Molifa and Michelle Koko. I'm sure some of you will remember I had made a statement there will never be load shedding in this country. At that time, we had stopped it and we said it will never be there. Load shedding started immediately after certain agreements were concluded with independent power producers.
Live, and in another 18 months to 2 years, you will forget that the challenges that we had with relation to power or energy and Eskom ever existed. We will overcome this electricity crisis that is engulfing our country at this moment. We will overcome it just as we overcame the apartheid challenge, just as we will overcome unemployment, just as we will overcome poverty, crime and corruption. We will overcome because we are South Africans.
The things that we spoke about was make sure that we no longer have load shedding. That has been achieved.
Sir Ramaphosa, I got a lot of time for him, as you may by now know. but he can lie to you with a straight face. He can lie to you with a straight nose.
Bafowethu, our leadership, Bafowethu, how can they do this to us? How can they say such things and then later on fail dismally? And in fact, can I just say that Comrade Panyaza Lusufi, who's the premier of Gauteng, was doing his walkabouts and, of course, community engagement programs in Zola yesterday, which was on Sunday. He even said it himself that those who have been deployed to deal with ESCOM have failed dismally. So I don't know what's going on. I'm not an engineer by any means. I'm sure you're not an engineer. Maybe you are. Maybe you understand better what's going on at ESCOM. Is it the issue of, okay, we've heard from the Zondo Commission. Of course, we're going to take a listen to Matsela Koko, who went to the Zondo Commission and tried to explain how he made ESCOM efficient under his time. We'll also take a listen to Brian Molefe, who also talks about what they did at the time. So we're looking at the technocrats, all right? And then we're also going to look at the current technocrat who's also going to talk about ESCOM. And then you decide, is the problem the mismanagement? Is it the corruption? Is it the sabotage? Is it the coal issue? Is it the fact that we must move from coal to renewable energy? Is it because now the US is putting pressure on us on the issues of climate change to tell us, stop using coal because coal it creates pollution, and therefore look at renewables. Are we ready for renewables? I mean, some people were saying that some of the plants in the UK, renewable energy plants, have been taken off. They are not working as expected. Some of the turbines are blowing out. They are not consistent, not reliable. So I don't know if the issues of solar and the issues of wind power and all these other different types, are they sustainable enough to keep an economy going? All right. We'll also take a look at, all right, so firstly, let's look at what the technocrats had to say about this issue of ESCOM. And you need to make sure, Jorge, you do your own research to understand, where is the real problem? Where is the problem? All right, so let's take a break and let's take a listen to what these guys had to do.
Now, the amount of diesel you use to keep the lights on is an indication of incompetence. So if you look at 2014, you see the peak is 12.5 billion rands. In 2013, 14, 15, you will see that ESCOM was spending 12.5 billion rands a year. It's a billion rands a month. And I told Mr. Matona and I told Mr. Molefe, says, I've been in this place for over 20 years. We don't need to burn diesel to keep the lights on and to do the maintenance that we need to do. We've got sufficient capacity. I was taught that. I was taught by John Beck, Mr. Beck, may his soul rest in peace. I was taught by Mr. Dames. If there's any person that has a feel of this system, I'm one of them. To burn diesel to keep the lights on in today's time is sheer incompetency. My team, and it's still there at ESCOM, reduced the diesel spend in 1 year from 12.5 billion rands to 200 million rands. And I always make submission and says, if you burn more than 200 million rands of diesel, you're incompetent. In this financial year, ESCOM is spending 7.5 billion rands. Last year, it spent 6.5 billion rands. So, there's a journalist called journalist that says, Mr. Koko burned diesel to keep the lights on, and they don't give evidence. Chairman, I use this opportunity to give it to you that we never burned diesel to keep the lights on.
were led by Suzanne Daniels.
Let's talk to the current load shedding situation at Eskom, and particularly given that you managed to keep the lights on at Eskom. And I made it my business to speak to people at Eskom to find out exactly what was going on at the time. And they speak of you in very glowing terms, the people at Eskom. I spoke to several people, not just one or two people. And they say that you had a certain culture. But let's talk to what it is that you did, that you managed to get right in keeping the lights on at Eskom.
We did maintenance. We did maintenance. We said maintenance was not negotiable. We set up a system that we call Tetris that scheduled maintenance, planned maintenance, not unplanned maintenance. We did everything in our power to reduce unplanned breakdowns. That's what we did. And it paid off in 6 months. We stopped load shedding, and it never occurred in another 3 years.
In order to supply the demand of the country, we have to run our open cycle gas turbines, the two stations we have, the one at Gauriko and the other one at Ankerlag, Mossel Bay and at Atlantis. We have to run it extensively. Now, we have invested in excess of 12 billion rand this year already burning diesel. Now, needless to say, Eskom has significant financial challenges as well. Now, if we look at the load shedding that we currently have and what we're implementing, it is also to address the issue of the financial resources, the scarce financial resources that we have. We do not have money to burn diesel anymore. You know, if you find the municipalities, I've just been saying, owing you 52 billion rand, but on the other side, you are forced, to burn diesel while people are owing you money. So you are depleting your cash flows, and this is where we find ourselves at a very, very delicate position. And moving forward, provided we can resolve the issue of cash flow, we will be forced as Eskom to implement load shedding because we do not have the money to burn the diesel at the rate that we have been doing up until now. And I think it's important to understand this. If you don't have money, you cannot utilize something that you don't have. So it's a critical item that we need to take note of. And currently the way that we plan our load shedding is to burn as little as possible diesel, to preserve our resources to the best. If we then look over the last 2 years, how we have performed, our energy availability, we can see that it is really sort of on par. So we haven't yet made that positive step change in improving our energy availability.
Right, man, welcome back to it. So you heard from the technocrats what they had to say about Eskom, the issues within Eskom. So, I understand that this thing, Eskom, it even stopped the president from going to Davos, right? So he had to stay here. So I do not attempt to cover all areas of the technical and engineering aspects of Eskom and its issues, all right? So, but I'm just going to talk about from myself as a layman's person based on the comments that were made by leaders and those who have been deployed to Eskom. Some of them who have failed dismally. Not actually some, but all of them have failed us dismally because we are sitting where we are sitting at the moment as a country. And it's tough. It's rough for small businesses. They have to close shop. We've had to close some of the stuff that we were busy with. Things were just falling, rotting, breaking. And just personally, even at home, things are just breaking. The fence doesn't go on sometimes. The motors of the garages get broken, just constant switching on and switching off. Your appliances in a house are going to be damaged at some point. And sometimes you forgot to look at the schedule, and then all of a sudden it just switches off while you're watching TV, and then it comes back with a surge. So you need to spend more to protect your appliances, protect yourself in a home, and of course the level of crime is going to go up. botsotsi ba vaya nje bazola nje mokasi ba checka gore entlek ba testa le defense gore entlek are the fence working, are they not working, is there enough power backing up the fence, can we break in? So it's becoming more and more difficult for each of us. All right, so I think at this point we've heard what the technocrats had to say. So now I want to focus on the issues of coal. All right. So the first video is obviously that's circulating around social media. People are saying coal is leaving Richards Bay. It's going to the UK. The UK has been saying climate change together with the US. Now they want our coal. We were told and given a directive that we need to cut down our coal supply. But now, here's the thing. Our president, Ramaphosa, speaks about renewable energy. You can hear that he's got vested interests in energy sector, all right? Some are saying that the president actually has a company, Shanduka, which has now a component of the energy business that is going to do business with government. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I've seen. I'll show you actually the post right now that speculations that he's got vested interest. And of course, his brother, Patrice Motsepe, also has vested interest. He's got African Rainbow. Um, uh, okay, I'll put the name down. Okay, so check out this company that he's got. So he's also got vested interest in this. And of course, also you can hear the tone between the Minister of Minerals and Energy, Gwere Mantashe. I mean, let's also... so the first one, I'm going to play you a video where speculations are going around about coal leaving here, going to the UK. And another one is going to be Gwere Mantashe speaking about the coal issue. All right. And then we're going to hear from an American expert, who's going to talk about what is happening around coal. All right. I'm bringing all of these so that you make sense. You try to make sense of what's happening. Is wool being pulled over our eyes around Eskom? Is the problem really genuine? Or is the problem the fact that, yes, there were 9 wasted years? Of course, Jacob Zuma wanted nuclear energy at some point. He was going to spend over $1 trillion. And of course, the then Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, did not want to agree to signing that nuclear deal. And he was moved or even fired at some point, Pravin. But now Pravin is sitting on the other end where he is responsible for Eskom, and he hasn't even said a thing. Gwere speaks more about the issues of energy and power and electricity and Eskom than Pravin Gordhan himself. Where is Pravin Gordhan? Where is Pravin Gordhan, the minister responsible for Eskom? He hasn't said a thing. So you can hear between Gwere Mantashe, who is a unionist, and a miner, against another miner who's the president, who is now advocating for us moving away from coal. And Gwere actually goes into detail to say, in fact, if we do shut down coal, these are the areas that are going to be affected. Mpumalanga is going to be affected. A majority of the towns in Mpumalanga are relying on the workforce working in those mines supplying coal. And of course, we'll hear what the energy expert says, because there was an announcement by the American president, Joe Biden, who then said, no, man, but it's again, ale fokotseng ka riding, fokotsang ka riding ya coal ya lona. Ke tla le ka 80 billion. So now he wants to give us 80 billion for not using coal. But there's so much happening. And of course, I have to be mindful of what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, because I could get myself into trouble. And some people might say it's some conspiracies, but I mean, all of this does not make sense. That's why I'm getting you all of those information so that you try and make sense of it, and then you decide, because it just doesn't seem like there are answers to solving this crisis of electricity in the country. All right, so let's take a break. Let's go and hear what these people had to say. Boom.
They took the coal to America, and we were left with load shedding.
My understanding is that Eskom is having 45,000 megawatts connected, but at best it gives us 26,000 megawatts. And therefore there is a gap of 22,000 megawatts that are not decommissioned, but not giving us energy. Therefore, with that capacity connected, I think there can be no collapse of energy generation. But we should actually pay attention and focus on servicing the units that are available in Eskom, connected, having capacity to give us energy. They must give us energy. And my view is that if there is still confusion of an entity that is doubtful what it should do because it is under pressure to go green, then we're going to be in darkness. I have said that on my capacity as a Minister of Energy that sometimes we like what is appearing nice. You know, let me give you two pieces of information. Germany is dismantling a wind farm to expand operations of a coal mine today, as we sit here today. I can tell you that coal miners in the United States are putting pressure on President Biden to invest more on coal production. Here we say we must leave coal. I am one of the people who says we can have a transition, but that coal is not about just numbers. It's about human beings. It's 10 towns in Mpumalanga. And I can give you the names if you want them. I don't add Standerton, I don't add Vereeniging, I don't add Lephalale, I don't add Newcastle. Just the coal belt is 10 towns. It's your Belfast, it's your Carolina, it's your Ermelo, it's your Hendrina, it's your Middleburg, it's your Malahleni, it's Ochis, it's Kriel, it's Leslie, and it's Delmas. So if you just talk recklessly about that, you are going to leave many people in darkness and starving.
And finally, I have to ask you about President Biden's announcement that billions of dollars of US money is going to go to South Africa to stop them using coal.
Mobilizing $8 billion in public and private finance to help South Africa replace coal-fired power plants with renewable energy sources and develop cutting-edge energy solutions like clean hydrogen.
What's going to be the impact of that? Because South Africa's already had enormous issues with reliable energy sources.
It's so sad. I mean, I was in South Africa in 2017, and I was, pretty impressed by their grid, and they're using coal, and at least where I was seeing clean air. And you just think like this is a place that needs more energy, more productivity, more prosperity. And instead, we're doing this new thing where we in the US are paying billions of dollars to get other people to take a vow of poverty. But we're doing it to some of the poorest places in the world. It's so perverse. There's no way, if you want to lower emissions, there's no way to do it humanely except by discovering cost competitive alternatives and innovating in them, like nuclear. It doesn't do any good to make poor countries get even poorer. Like, what is that going to accomplish? Is that going to stop China from building new coal plants? Is it going to stop India from building new coal plants? It's just this senseless destruction because people aren't thinking through what's actually good for human life.
Well said, Alex. And I know plenty of South Africans are struggling with regular blackouts, and this is, I think, going to make things even worse for them. You've again given us plenty to think about. Thank you for joining me tonight.
All right, welcome back to it, man. So you heard it. You heard it for yourself. You heard it. It's crazy what's going on at the moment. But this week, being a Monday today, we know that on the 25th of January, the DA is going to do what he did a couple of years ago, marching to Lutuli House that did not go down well for the DA. And of course, we remember when they also marched to Kosato House, and that did not end quite well for the DA. Now, I don't know, but the opposition has been fragmented in how they want to deal with energy matters. And of course, they tried to unite against the Phala issue, which seems to have taken a bit of should I say, the Phala issue has been swept under the carpet, because now you have the energy crisis that is now steering the debate away from Phala. So I don't know if the opposition is going to have the same amount of energy in working together in dealing with this issue, Eskom, as much as they did when they had vested interest in Phala. So the opposition parties, the DA is going to march to Lutulia House on the 25th. I heard that Musi Maimani's political party, together with the IFP and some social activists, and are actually taking this matter to the courts, the issue, Eskom, to the courts. So we'll hear how that happens. And we've yet to see whether the opposition is going to march to NERSA. And we've heard, we don't know if they're going to march to Eskom offices. But we've seen that there have been pockets of individuals and activists really trying to march to the Eskom offices within the areas. But we don't know if it's going to be a widespread thing where they are going to march to the head office of Eskom. So we'll see and hear about it. But let's hear what John Steenhuisen, the leader of the DA, has to say about this. Boom.
My fellow South Africans, as you may know, the Democratic Alliance is organising a major protest against load shedding and unaffordable electricity price increases. This will take place at Luthuli House, the ANC's headquarters in Johannesburg, on Wednesday, the 25th of January. If you live in or around Gauteng, I urge you to join us next Wednesday for the Power to the People protest. On behalf of the DA, I also extend an invitation to political parties, civil society, and community formations, and all South Africans to join forces as we direct our anger at the true source of this crisis, the African National Congress. We've chosen Luthuli House for a very good reason. Through its corrupt policy of cadre deployment, the ANC has seized the decision-making powers that should rightfully belong to the state and have centralized these powers in the ANC. It is at Luthuli House where, over the past 25 years, decisions were made to deploy the corrupt and incompetent ANC cadres who plundered and destroyed Eskom. It is at Luthuli House where corrupt tenders were handed out, including for the construction of the Medupi and Kusile power stations that have cost our country hundreds of billions of rands, yet still can't provide the power we need. The ANC is accused number one for load shedding, and Luthuli House is the scene of the crime. But also have good news for those of you who do not live in Johannesburg. The DA has listened to your calls for protest action to be expanded to more parts of the country, which is why we've decided to turn next Wednesday into a fully fledged national day of action against ANC load shedding. Please follow the DA's social media pages and WhatsApp groups for more information. You can also visit our website at www.da.org.za, where we will provide you with poster designs and other resources to enable you to participate. Now is the time to take action, or soon there will be nothing left of our beloved South Africa. So let's save the date. Next Wednesday, the 25th of January, we stand shoulder to shoulder. Let's make sure that the 25th of January will go down in history as a day that marks the beginning of the end for the corrupt load shedders and the start of a hopeful new era where South Africans stand together to build a better country for all of us. I'll see you in the streets.
So you heard from the DA, the Democratic Alliance, and of course, let's take a look at some of the the issues that are being brought by the newspapers, and I'm going to take a look at it. All right, so I'm going to start with the city of Johannesburg. The MMC of EISD, Environment, Infrastructure and Service Delivery, Councillor Michael Sun says, he has written to one of our local newspapers. He says, MMC for Environment and Infrastructure Services, Councillor Michael Sun has made a call to communities to play a more active role in 2023 as the infrastructure critical to providing basic services to the people of Johannesburg remains under siege from vandals and thieves. According to City Power, cable theft continued at an alarming high levels during the festive season, especially following the incidents of flooding at the beginning of December 2022. The power utility continues to battle rampant cable theft in Roodepoort. In 2022 alone, over 200 JoJo tanks provided by Johannesburg Water to communities to supply areas without formal services were either stolen or vandalized. 200 JoJo tanks, all right? The situation breaks my heart. Cable theft and infrastructure vandalism are killing service delivery across the country. We need communities to work with us this year to ensure we put an immediate stop to this plague, said Michael Sun. All right. So last year, EISD launched an infrastructure protection initiative to work alongside neighborhood watchers and other groups, taking it upon themselves to help safeguard City Power's electrical grid. While this initiative has borne fruit, cable theft remains rampant. So that's another challenge we have over and above load shedding, is the fact that when the power is off, the thieves are out there searching and looking for cables to steal. According to Sun, EISD is going to redouble their efforts to ensure City Power works in tandem with the law enforcement agencies and shoulder to shoulder with communities to extinguish the horrendous crime against lives, livelihoods, and national stability. City Power is currently busy crafting an emergency plan to deal with cable theft immediately, and will include adding its already over 100 million security budget, amongst others. 100 million rand for security. All right. So if you hear something reported, information to be supplied anonymously to the city, says Michael Sun, you can report cable theft at City Power. Use any of these 24-hour hotlines: 011 490 7900. 011 490 7900. 011 490 7911. Or 011 490 7553. All right. Alternatively, send a WhatsApp. Don't Lilona man. You cannot be seeing just random guys bapere the overall or digging trenches or on some things, and you're not asking. Even if it's legitimate ESCOM employees, you need to stop and ask them, show us your identity. What are you doing here? What are you digging? Just be active as a citizen and lay your danger boxes, those substations. I mean, in one statement I could not read right now, but it said that there were over 390 of these boxes, these mini substations that were replaced by City Power, which has costed over 200 million rand. But you can check it. I'm going to post it here. 200 million rand has been spent on these, mini substations. 390 of them have been blown. The majority of them were blown in Roodepoort area, which is areas like Matole, Florida, Roodepoort, going all the way to Bosnake Park and all of that. People are just overloading these substations, and Baba Angwe is just pure vandalism. When the power is off as a result of ESCOM, magodu a tsena a ilo senya magodu ana. Damn it, man. So you can also send a WhatsApp to 083 579 4497. All right. So to report vandalism or theft, Joburg Water Infrastructure use this anonymous line. I don't know if it works. It's 0800 000 2589. I'm actually going to test these numbers as soon as I'm done recording here. All right. So further on, so another story here says load shedding is nothing new in Roodepoort, and neither is a complaint about the epileptic power supply that is causing complaints to erupt sporadically throughout communities. All right. So residents of Horizon View, Roodepoort, North, Georginia, Horizon, and other areas within Ward 84 have many questions regarding the area's power supply. Of course, it's a number of issues I mentioned earlier, the leadership, and of course, things that I've just been mentioning now, cable theft, vandalism, and etc., etc. But you can see, I'm not the only one that's confused, and I'm not the only one that's really pissed off about this. And of course, I've got thousands of other people that are extremely upset about this whole situation. All right, so let's take a look at this one. It says, what does it say? What does it say? What does it say? Where was I? All right. So after confronting an unknown City Power employee, the residents felt like they were not getting the answers and expressed their disappointment in City Power. One irritated resident noted that they were out of power for long hours and that the problem has been an ongoing nightmare. Another pointed out that the power situation in the area is unacceptable as they have been out of power for 18 hours straight. And yet another told the newspaper that since Horizon View has been without power for so long, electricity should be restored immediately without another incident of load shedding. While demanding answers from the power utility, the Ward 84 residents regretted that power still has not been restored, even with complaints about the situation. They denounced those responsible for the situation as incompetent. So residents don't want to hear about what Michael Sun is saying, the city is saying. They are just jumping into their own belief that it's just pure incompetence across the board. All right. So according to City Power spokesperson Isaac Mangena, they were attending to several unplanned power interruptions in Roodepoort that plunged many suburbs into darkness. Our teams in Roodepoort are working around the clock to ensure that this is restored to all affected customers. We apologize for the inconvenience caused by the prolonged power outages, said Mangena. All right, so this is going to be the situation for the next 2 years. So brace ourselves. Those of you who can afford, of course, alternative power supplies such as solar panels and stuff, it might be a way to go for you and your household. But be prepared to walk away and part ways with over 50 to 100,000 rand that you need to initially put down for solar panels, because it's not a cheap exercise to have a couple of solar panels on your rooftop to power your lights, to power your stove, kettle, fridges, your gate motors, and maybe your electricity fence. So I don't know. Not all of us can afford all that. And of course, let's not forget that we are still living in the most unequal society in the world. And of course, the city that is the most unequal in the continent and the world, city of Johannesburg. So while you can do it for yourself, for your family, you must remember that millions of other people cannot afford to put solar on their homes. But in fact, this has been something that I have been raising for the last probably 5 years, 6 years. And I remember quite vividly saying, because I grew up go an informal settlement there called Princess Informal Settlement. And I remember whenever I used to go and see my mom, I would see all these cables flying. Haukayako Princess, just behind Westgate. Those of you who know that area, you can attest to this. How Fetaka Main Reef Road to just behind the Princess Station. Westgate is on your right, the squatter camp is on your left, Main Reef is in the middle. Hauvaka Main Reef going all the way to Vetborki, Leipertsvlei, and Krugersdorp. How Fetago Princess, you can tell the roads are completely fucked up, damaged. So they're digging, they were pulling electricity from the railway line, from businesses that are on the side of the railway line into the informal settlements. The electric poles, all of them were Banebanka, Motakasi, everywhere. And cables were running in the street, in the air. People used to die, all right? Kids used to die because these wires were running on top, at the bottom, in the middle. And kids, habawoka at night, babatwankodi, spotong, drinking, they walk into this thing, they've been electrocuted. I mean, I've heard of the most horrific cases and incidents where people have burned to death whenever I went to go see my mom. And I remember I used to say all of this to the former MMCs of EISD and chairpersons at the time, to say we need to look at a different energy mix for informal settlements and, of course, for areas that are non-paying. So we cannot continue on having housing, building houses without a strong electricity grid. So you're building houses, thousands of houses, but then there's not enough power supply. There's not enough power stations to power those houses that you are building. Like we had seen in Vleerhof, where houses were built, there was no electricity to power them up, puts further pressure on the electricity grid. So, and I would say to the leadership, Gary, how about the new houses that are being built? You build it like, like the standard features that come with a house that's newly built, like your stove, your cupboards, your kitchen sinks. Those are your standard things that you have when you're building a house. Solar must be one of them. You must have solar panels to heat up the geyser and to switch on the lights. Maybe not so much for the electricity stove and whatever, but even for the stove, maybe instead of putting an electricity stove, these new houses must come kadi stove for that gas, so that the new owner comes in car a gas stove, or it comes in car a gas bottle, and then or you have an alternative. They can buy, so you can have a stove that is both electricity and gas. I don't know if they can find those, but I used to suggest houses needs to be built. Houses, Kolifureng, Ko Vleerhof. I used to say, why don't they have solar panels on top? And then when you have solar panels on these new houses, you also, now there's your carports. Your carport, you put your solar panels on your carports so that, and this was before your macros did this thing, and other big businesses where they would make sure their carports have these solar panels and solar panels on the actual roofs to power your buildings. And I used to say, you take the households that are not paying, you look at municipalities that are not paying, Soweto that is not paying, you take them off the grid, you leave business on the grid because business is paying. Okay, some businesses I've now seen they've been shut down, they've been closed because they were not paying. There was an engine garage that owed, I think, City Power over 2 million, and tons of other businesses that have illegally connected electricity to their businesses. But you start with households that are not paying. You know where the weak areas are. You know the municipalities that are not paying. So you start off with those households and areas so that when you build your new houses, they come with solar powers. The old township areas, you go and install powers. Dintwana, Machita, those who actually steal electricity, you turn them. Those who used to steal cables and steal electricity, you turn them into working with government in partnerships through the NGOs. They can have cooperatives so that Machitaba, they no longer steal electricity. They install your solar panels and they service them. They've got service agreement to be able to manage these things as they break over time. So now you're taking a thief and you turning this thief around and working together with these thieves, because as it stands right now, these guys, They need the money. They go and steal the cable. They go and steal the cable. They sell it to some guy who buys the cable. And then the cable, some of them make their way to the informal settlements to power the informal settlements that have not received any electricity. All right. I've seen now Maekasi, Princess Informal Settlement, they have now installed electricity. There's at least lighting at night. There's solar lights at the moment, but the electricity has not reached my mom's house, for instance. But like Ilefela Boxy, they've put in the cables. They've done away a lot with some of the wiring that was running on top. So, which is a good thing. So you start taking your informal settlements, your township areas that are not paying, that cannot afford to pay. You install solar. You take the Ntwana tsa Dinyaope, Magodu, you train them to be the ones that install and they protect your infrastructure. How best to take those who are thieves, who are stealing electricity cables and so on, and turn them into citizens that actually contribute to this economy. So you help them. And of course, this is an idea that I loved about what Pakstow did at the time. He had a couple of programs, and the Josie at Work program that enabled communities that are unemployed, that are sitting ko kasi, to say, ikopanye, gather yourselves together, and then halifatu ikopanya, you form a cooperative. Once you've got a cooperative, you can go and apply for packages. Maybe you want to paint street signage. Maybe you want to go and protect the danger boxes. Maybe you want to go and protect your electricity infrastructures, your power stations. You form yourself together as a cooperative so that li protect your infrastructure, whether it's cutting the grass, whether it's picking up rubbish, whether it's dealing with a big problem that is costing the city almost 80 billion rand, which is the issue of illegal dumping. So now you've got unemployed number of people that are now being formalized by having cooperatives that can do business with government to protect their infrastructure. And then came the DA government in 2016 and wiped that whole thing apart. We've got guys who are stealing electricity, and nothing is out there to rehabilitate them. Nothing is out there to change them. They are now fully fledged thieves. They've got a market that buys the copper, that buys the cables, and therefore they will continue to steal. And there doesn't seem to be any other plan, any other alternative to say, how do we deal kaditotite? And like now, as per this article, 100 million rand has been spent by City Power just in one financial year to deal with security. And they are not winning. They are not winning. And that's just 100 million on security. That's not a couple of millions. Like I mentioned, 200 million was spent to replace 39 power mini substations. Danger box that supplies about 10 to 15 houses. That alone is about 519 per box. Danger box here. We've got one just outside one of our neighbors across. We have to go and patrol this damn thing and have a look at it. And actually we said, so that but baska kenagaraso baibule, and then they fiddle with it and then it messes us up. So I'm saying all of this is that this has to be a collective responsibility to dealing with energy issues. You as a community need to stand together. Your street committees, your street needs to stand up together. If you live in nice, posh houses where it's like gated communities or giddy estate, maybe you are lucky. But those of us who are not as fortunate, there's no gated communities. We need to stand together as communities. So in our street, we've had to say to Machita, let's form ourselves together. Then we're able to deal with the issues. Now we want to be able to get the solar lights. Let's save up for this. Let's save up Okata Joang, an open field right next door to my place. So those are the things that we have to do. We had a security guard here that used to walk around and be able to make sure Khori looks after Khori, our cables are not stolen, the lights from the street lights are not stolen during the day while people are at work, the danger boxes or your electricity substations or mini substations are not fiddled with while people are out at work. When are you thinking it's load shedding? Kanti niggas are out there during the day while people are at work, they're fiddling with it. So we as communities need to stand together. And then we need us to be active citizens. We cannot be as complacent as we've been for the longest of time. It cannot be. It cannot be. So I applaud anybody that stands and says, I'm going to fight this war with whoever is in charge, be it the government, be it the leadership of the government, be it the ANC who's in charge of government, be it those who are deployed in government, especially in ESCOM. We need to stand together as communities. It's no use complaining and not doing anything about it. All right. So that is my rant. This has been another episode of The Unfiltered Truths, where I come and share my views and express my frustrations. And of course, at times, there'll be some good content. But the Free Ride podcast, as you know, when I drive around, go pick up people, we talk about nice stuff. We talk about what they do, community builders, people that stand out, that do good for others and stuff like that. And of course, when we come to the unfiltered truths, we don't mess around. We don't mince our words. We tell it like it is. All right, man, I'm out. Boom.